Hello, everybody. It's been a while since I've streamed on this. Although I have been streaming on my other channel quite frequently to try to get the rhythm down of streaming. But yeah, in this video, here we go, I am live. I'm gonna be talking about kind of the financial system as a whole. I think just a lot of people don't know kind of like the zoomed out picture. I think if people have been following me on this channel, then they definitely know this story. But I was recently talking with a crypto company actually to possibly work with them, and one of the videos they had me make was just talking about DeFi and kind of its inevitability. And so I figured, actually I made the video a couple of times and I couldn't get it under half an hour. It was hard. So but yeah, I figured I'd go through the whole thing. I did a bunch of research and have numbers and all that sort of stuff, yeah, but yeah, let's kind of get on with it. So before I kind of get started, just know I do, oh wait, I can move this down. Wait, maybe I should zoom this a little bit. What? So I do have a channel that I go live on all the time, and I do a lot of AI stuff on here. I make like kind of unique sales tools and stuff to help people with streamlining their workflows and media, video creation, just kind of all sorts of stuff. And I'm not sure if I'm going to move the crypto over here or just continue on this channel with live, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I will be going live on this channel all the time, many times a week, and it'll be randomly at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning when I just going over project stuff before I get up. But yeah, so I figured the best way to start, there we go, best way to kind of start this story, and again, I want to talk to you about kind of the bigger picture as a whole. You can get into the weeds of left and right and countries and doing XYZ and this is political blah 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 or whatever the case. That's not necessarily what I'm going to be talking about. I'm more going to be talking about, again, the bigger picture. As this economy has crashed, economies across the world have crashed hundreds of times, completely collapsing. In recent years, we've had big countries with their economies collapsing, and it's not, the interesting thing is you can predict it, and every path of failure pretty much has man, there's an echo in my ear, it's really annoying. But every single fiat system, currency system, money system out there has kind of followed the same path of failure. And so people have been able to predict what's going to happen with the United States dollar for the last 100 years. And yeah, so that's kind of what I want to talk about right now. Now, first I kind of want to talk about, maybe I should talk about this actually later, because you first need to understand kind of the background. So so there is a path of failure that every single country with their economy has gone down. Now, I'm going to be talking about the United States right now, but if you look at Japan or China or Russia or any major country, this has happened in one way or another. and sometimes some of these steps are skipped or whatever, but the problem is has been around forever, and I actually don't think it's a problem. I think it's something I think it's designed that way. So yeah, let's kind of go over. I kind of have a history of the major events that took place in the United States that led our economy where we're at right now, where I believe, I have no doubt in my mind that it's going to crash, and the United States dollar is not going to be the currency used by most people in the world. There's going to be a new currency taking place, and it might be a merger of a bunch of currencies and whatever. But essentially the problem is countries start off normally good. Whatever financial system they have, right when it begins, it's always great. But things happen down the line, like public works, right? Or wars, or disasters that that gets to the point where if you don't have the money, and are you just going to say, sorry, we're not going to protect our country's citizens because we're or whatever? No, they go into debt and they borrow money, and eventually it leads to the currency dying. But let's kind of talk about it step by step. Now, if you look at Greece, look at the Roman Empires happened many times, China, Japan, and currently right now the entire world is on this fiat system. There's a couple countries that aren't, but so the problems I'm talking about right now, pretty much every country in the entire world is having the exact same issues, and yeah. So first of all, let's talk about the country when it was created. Oop. Thought my mic wasn't working. Wait. Oh my gosh, there is a lag. Alright, give me a sec. Oh, well, good thing to... Let's test this out. Sorry guys, I'm frozen. USB. There we go. Alright. Ooh, the audio now. Ugh. Alright. See if that works. Oh my gosh. Alright, sorry, there's a lag in my headphones. I can't put them in. Okay, so let's just talk about the United States before this. So when our country was created, we essentially, it was it wasn't like a country as we have today where we're all connected. There were banks that were scattered in different states and different areas, and they all kind of had their own currency. So think about it like there isn't like a huge country connection. We just started as a country. There's people that just roam out there and just start building houses in the middle of nowhere, and that's their land. Like, a lot of it was very new in the beginning, and things that we're still trying to get figured out. So a lot of people, like, wealthy people would come and say, well, if you need money, I'll loan it to you just as a wealthy individual. And that's how, like, the beginning banks started happening, is, wealthy people, even from different countries, would come over and loan money out and kind of start their own banks. Now, before 1913, there were a lot of crashes and whatnot that it took place locally, sorry, someone just opened the door. There were a lot of like financial crashes that took place locally, where banks would over leverage their money that they would loan out, and they didn't have the money to pay everybody back, and people would realize this, and then everyone would rush to the bank and try to get their money, and then the bank would end up collapsing, and people just kept losing faith in banks. And so there is a reserve, and for people who don't know, there's a reserve requirement for banks. And so right now it's 1, 3, 5, 10%. It's in that range. 10% is kind of the norm. Lately, it's gone down to 5 or 3. Some banks don't even have to have a requirement, meaning they can take your $10,000 that you have in savings, they can take the entire $10,000 and put it in the S&P 500, make 18%, 22%, or you're spending crazy lately, but 10%, 11, whatever. They give you a 0.5%, 0.01% if you're at like a big bank. Local banks might give you, now they might give you upwards like 5%, but still they'll take your money and they'll gamble with it. And if the gamble wins, great, they make money. If they don't, then they fail as a bank. But banks also had the ability to leverage your money as well. So you put in $1,000 and they were able to gamble $10,000 essentially, or $9,000 of your money. Leverage that to $9,000. So if you had $100,000, they could leverage almost $1 million of money that doesn't really exist, and make a bunch of money off of what you made, right? So of course banks are going to do this. It's like a easy way to cheat the system and whatnot. So not cheat the system, just take advantage, because anybody could do it if they have enough money and power. Build a bank, right? It's becoming less and less true, but these banks just kept collapsing over and over and over. And again, this is before 1913, but in 1907 there was something called I should probably put that here, but there's something called the Panic of 1907 or whatever, and it was kind of the last financial crash, major one, before the Federal Reserve was created. So again, now this is going to be the first step towards this towards the end, the first step towards crashing and collapsing completely. And that was getting big business and government in control of our money. Now, there's a lot to be said with this event of the Federal Reserve being created. I mean, the fact that they can even put the word federal in when it's not federal at all. It's a privately owned organization that works in companion with the government, that have very little to no oversight, and nobody else can put the word federal in any other companies, which is crazy. But at any rate, yeah, there's a book called Jekyll Island or something like something. Anyways, it's about the Federal Reserve. But if you want to look into that, but essentially, there's a lot of problem because people don't trust big businesses, people don't trust government, and there's a lot of back and forth from 1907 up to 1913 before this actually got passed. But 1913, essentially, big business and government got together, and then they worked in unison to essentially create money out of thin air that they could essentially loan to the government with backed assets like gold, I guess. So and so, yeah. So at this time, the Federal Reserve had a pile of gold, and then when they got more gold, they would put more currency into the system, and that way there would be no collapsing. And also, what this did, it connected all the banks nationwide. So, like, for example, if there was a bank run in Philadelphia or whatever, and it was, again, the way that the banking system works is where they take your money and they can leverage trade it up to 9x, and they don't have to have much of your savings in their vaults and all that sort of stuff. If people did a bank run, the banks around it now would get together and send them their money. So, like, if this one bank got a bank run and everybody wanted their money, well, 10 banks could loan 10% of their, or 50 banks could loan a, tiny portion of their vaults to send over to make sure that the bank run, if they rushed and got their money, they'd get it. And then people would be, okay, I have my money, everything's good, and they put it back in the bank, and there'd be faith in the banking system. So that was kind of the purpose of it, was to make sure these bank runs didn't happen and to stabilize the economy. now the joke is the fact that less than 20 years later, the worst economic crash the country's ever seen took place. Now, this couldn't have actually happened without the Federal Reserve, because at the time there were, I probably should be going on here, but before the Federal Reserve, there were a lot of banks, and if one bank failed, it was just that small region. But now that the entire country was connected, now if one banking system fails, it's the connected banking system, right? And which means instead of it just being a region that fails, it's an entire country, and that's what happened. So like all this did right here was essentially make it where big business and government could borrow and loan a lot more money and make a lot more money. And so, yeah, just like regional banks crashed because they were irresponsible, the federal, on a federal level, that took place because we're dealing with more money now, all the banks in the country. So yeah, when that took a long time. It took like over 10 years for this to recover as well, and the recovery has never been that long. And it got to the point where there were like super wealthy people just like throwing money out there for, just like giving it away, like essentially just trying to save the economy. There were a lot of bad actors kind of doing the same thing, try to control things. There's a lot to be said during this 10 years, but eventually, the war probably, there's a lot of connection with Great Depression into the war, into the Bretton Woods Agreement, but essentially the war took place. You've heard the term war is profitable. Well, it's profitable when you're not in it and you're providing guns and weapons and machines and all that sort of stuff, which we were in the beginning of World War II, before we came at the end. So that helped, and then we essentially kind of became a superpower, looked upon as like the most financial and stable country when it came to their economy, which essentially led to an agreement where all the big countries got together and they said, look, we're now connected worldwide, and we need to have a common something to trade with. Because if, like, for example, if China wants to buy like a bunch of oil from India or whatever, I don't know, what currency are they going to use, and is it China's currency or is it India's currency? And then if other people want to buy that oil, okay, do I need to have China's currency and India's currency, and and you need to have huge cash reserves when it comes to these huge trades, because governments don't make little $1 million deals. They make tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars, right? They're long-term contract, whatever type of thing. So they kind of decided that the United States dollar was going to be the currency that everybody was going to hold in their bank vaults, and then if anything, any trade, world trade, or world settlements, or with bankings or whatever the case took place, it would be taken place through the United States dollar. And so that's essentially what this was. Now again, just like 1913, we're now taking little tiny banks from states and cities or whatever, and now we're connecting them all together, which caused a huge crash. Now we're taking a big chunk of the world, not the entire world, but it's like 40 to 80%. It was always like ranging in there. It's always been the most dominant. Most of the time it was actually over 50%, but still. Most of the world's trade was done with the United States dollar, and it was great. 40s, 50s, right? But again, right, we started a new economy, or a new type of system. Everything was dandy until 1929, right? The Roaring 20s, everything was great, right? Same thing. We started a new financial system, 15, 20 years, 10, 15, 20 years, great, awesome. And slowly into the 60s, we started seeing problems when it came to the amount of money we were spending and where we were getting that money from. Other countries were looking at the United States and being like, how is it that they have so much money and they're doing so well and we're not? Is it because they're actually better and smarter or whatever, or are they doing something funky? And so the French government ended up, they got pissed. Let me pull it up actually, because you can actually see the video. French Prime Minister 70s, or I mean it was the 60s. I actually thought random keywords like that would have pulled it up. Why are you only showing me shorts? Come on, give me a break. There we go. Well, anyways, it for sure happened. This is why I really love ChatGPT, because I can be stupid with it. What's the name of the French? Actually, you know what? I'm just not gonna do it. Just trust me. You can look it up later. I always end up doing that and getting off track. But essentially, the French Prime Minister got pissed at the United States, and he yelled at us and said, "You guys are gambling with our money. You guys are. There's no way you have the cash reserves that you say you do, or the gold reserves, and you're using the entire world as a piggy bank, and we're not going to have it. And we're sending a warship over right now with a pile of your cash, and we want our gold back." That's pretty much what he said. He was actually a little more savage, actually, than that. I blunted it up, but you should look it up. So anyways, they literally did that, and they sent a warship over, and like the day before it docked, and this is something a lot of people don't even know, but like the day before it docked, like a day it docked, it was like within days of them sending that warship over and saying, "Give us our gold back," Nixon went on air and said, "Hey, you know what? You can no longer give us your dollars, and we'll give you the equivalent of gold back." And so essentially what he said is, we're no longer, our currency is not going to be backed by anything, or it's not going to be backed by gold anymore. It's going to be backed by the faith of the government. And that's what fiat means. It's faith-based currency that the value is going to maintain itself, but it's not actually backed by anything. And so the warship docked. They said, "Sorry, we're no longer trading in any United States dollars for gold anymore," and then we were off the gold standard. And then within the next couple of years, there was just a lot of financial, problems with, is our, dollar stable? Is our, but very soon after, there was this oil crisis, and there were oil prices that were getting pumped through the roof. And it became a huge problem. People couldn't get gas, they couldn't get to work. And so eventually, within a couple of years, we got together and essentially signed something called the OPEC agreement. It's like the Organization of Petroleum something countries, Organization of Petroleum exporting countries, right? But essentially what this was an agreement that the United States would now be the main dollar being traded when it came to oil. And so a lot of people say we're oil based. We're now backed by oil. This is kind of what they mean, is the world's the largest oil producers have an agreement that if anybody wants to buy oil from them, they have to use it through the United States dollars. And I'm not going to get into that, but if you look into the whole where we get our oil from and the crazy things that go on in the United States, turning a blind eye type of stuff, there's a lot of interesting things with this. Like assassinations happening on our country's soil. We have proof and evidence of it, and we try to bury the crap out of it and don't arrest people. It's just like, you're never going to arrest someone. Anyways, but yeah, so since the 70s, we've kind of been on this oil-backed currency or whatever. Now, during the 70s and 80s, 90s, there's been a bunch of crashes, right? We had the 80s crash, we had the 90s.com, but the 2008, this was the next one that kind of upped the level again, right? So now we're at a point where so the 2008 crash, the reason why that happened was because, again, the same exact thing that's been happening even since before the the very first the 1900s. It's been happening for thousands of years before this. Every single country economy does the same thing, and what they do is they overspend, right? They just find themselves in situations where they're spending way too much money, they don't have it, and then they and so in 2008 they were just letting people buy all this stuff from all these, like, this imaginary money, essentially, that's that's deriving its value from almost nothing, right? They would take essentially all these really bad loans and compile them together and then sell them as good loans, and it was just like turning money over, and eventually the bubble popped, the housing market, right? And then the 2008 crash happened. But the root cause, that's irrelevant, because the outcome of this was quantitative easing. And what that was now the United States said openly that they're going to print more money than they have. So all before this, they never admitted that they were doing it, right? Somehow the Great Depression happened, even though, if they had all the money, but they were making bad loans. 2008, same thing, right? But every crash, that's what happens. They just, banks, countries, whatever, they spend too much money, then they don't have the money to actually back it up, and then, bank runs up, or whatever the case. But when this took place, now we're saying, hey, we're just going to print money if we need it. And they did. And if you look at, like, QE charts 2008 to 2024, you'll see when they injected money into the markets. Is there a chart saying how much money they're injected on each one? So yeah, at 3 trillion from 2008 to 2020, at 5 trillion COVID. So this right here, by the way, from 2020 to 2022, during this right here, they added more money than, or it was like 80% of all the money in existence from the United States, from the beginning of the country to now. All the money that was printed and that is currently in the markets and whatnot, was printed in this year, was right here. By the way, our entire country's national debt was less than this in year 2000. In 2002, it was $6 trillion, and then Donald Rumsfeld came on the news and said, we accidentally lost $2.3 trillion. We don't know what happened to it. Our accountants aren't very good at keeping track of trillions of dollars. I'm not even kidding. Look it up. Donald Rumsfeld 2020. It was the day before 9/11. And then the Pentagon got hit where the records were being kept, and we've never found out where that $2.3 trillion went. I know that sounds like a conspiracy, and it might be, but that's the actual facts that took place. So I'm not saying, anyways, whatever. But still, just to show you how much. And we just printed this in the last couple of years. So, like, everything that the country had in 2020 and year 2000, we printed that in 2 years. It's gnarly. But what that ends up doing is it ends up killing the value of the dollar. And then you'll find, so you'll people say all the time, like, you'll okay, young kids hear this, and I actually heard this as well, and I'm not young anymore, but parents would be like, oh yeah, I bought my first house at 20 and I had it paid off, and you know, it's like, well, you know, it's not because your kids are lazier than you are, and they could be, but it's because it was way easier to buy a house 10 years ago. It was way easier 10 years before that. It was way easier 10 years before that. In the 50s, you could have 4 kids, one person stay at home all day, one person only have one job, and you could pay off that house in 7, 8, 9 years. And, you know, there's no way you could do that now. And so you can see the effect of what printing money and what adding, you're taking away value from the currency that you have. And so a lot of people like want this like free money printed, given by the government. And what that does is it just makes things more and more expensive. So now a house that costs like 300 grand now costs 600 grand. And everyone's like, well, that's cool, I can sell my house for 600 grand. It's like, well, yeah, but now you have to buy another house, and the house that used to be 600 grand is now like 1.2 million. So you have to buy another $300,000 house for 600 grand. You know, and you also see it in stock prices. And so the inflation has gotten insane in stocks. People don't look at it that way, but a company is worth this much. So if you want to invest in that company, you could invest, you know, let's say $1,000, and you'll get, you know, companies aren't this small, but let's say $1,000, you get 1%. And a year later, now that same $1,000 gives you not 1%, but 0.3%. So you have to spend $3,000 to get the same returns as you did. So inflation comes in ways of you know, or even food, right? Everyone knows, like, the toilet paper roll, you know, you don't have as much toilet paper. The cereal boxes are just a little bit less cereal, right? The cups are getting smaller. They're keeping the same price, but they're giving you a little bit less and less. So things like that are the effects of you know, printing money out of nowhere. And you know, so I mean, if you and 10 of your friends each had $100, and you all had like all this, you know, cool stuff that you were trading with that money, and then somebody just came and printed like $10,000 and came and said, I'm gonna buy all your stuff right now. It's like, well, now he has all the stuff, but he didn't do any of the work. We don't have anything, you know. It's like, you can kind of see how that doesn't work on a, you know, over exaggerated scale, I guess. But so yeah, so essentially, here's what I believe is going to happen. Here's what I believe the next steps are going to be for the United States, or the world, actually. I think, and I don't know if I fully believe if COVID was an attempt or not, but I think there's going to be a world event. It has to be big, not good, like a World War II type of thing, and what's going on right now, it could be a 3 type of thing, right? But a big event is going to have to take place, and it's going to have to crash and destroy the entire world's economy. It can't be localized. And so I think what's going on right now is so same thing when local banks were crashing, and then everyone got together with all the local banks and put them in a big organization. Hopefully that won't, and then that caused an even bigger problem. And then we took the entire world, and then we're like, hey, we'll fix it by now putting the entire world on this currency, right? And you know, that hasn't worked. And now, essentially, we don't have the entire world, but that's the goal. Is the major countries got together for the Bretton Woods Agreement. They want the entire world to be on a currency. They want it to be digital, and they want to be able to tokenize it. What's my camera doing? There we go. So, and that's what I think the WF is trying to do. I think they're trying to essentially make it like essentially tokenize the entire world, make it where water, trees, earth, land, plants, whatever, everything that they can, tokenize it and make it where everything is an asset. And then they also want to put everybody on the same currency. They want it to be digital. They want to use blockchain technology, even though they say it's not good, right? And they want to track everybody's expenses, and I think that's the next step. And whether that takes place in the next 50 years or 20 or, I don't know what but that's what I think is going to happen. So, I mean, that's kind of the rundown of the history of fiat currencies, why they are always crashing, why every country's economy crashes, because it always goes down the same path of failure. And by the way, what this does, an important step too, is with this WF proposal that they're trying to do, is what if, okay, big picture again, all of this debt that people owe, that you owe, right? So now I have to buy a house that used to be 300,000, now it's 600,000. So now I have this debt of 600,000, right? Everything I'm buying is more and more expensive. Everybody is getting in more and more debt, and eventually it's going to pop where the entire world crashes economically, and this event is going to take place I just talked about. Now, that event is going to all the rich and wealthy people in the world, the elite, and the people who actually have the reserves and that own and control the debt, like BlackRock, are going to get together and say, hey, we'll fix everything, and we'll make it where you're no longer in debt, and you're not going to lose your house, and you're not going to, we are going to get together, and we're going to create a new, tokenized currency type of thing. And now, and if you get on this, ID, I think they're going to have a universal ID where everything is going to be bought through this universal ID, so they can track what books you're buying, where you're traveling, all that sort of stuff. And they're going to tell you, hey, yeah, let's get on our universal ID profile, and start using or if you want us to pay your debt, that's totally fine. We can cover your debt, and you can continue paying us off. We'll drop the interest rates. We'll make sure that you don't, whatever. And you can use our new currency or our new money system. And to use it, you need to log in, which means everything that you buy needs to be doing with this new money system, which means we need to verify you with an ID, and then they're going to get you locked down on ID, and people like BlackRock. In case you don't know, BlackRock owns the majority. They're the top owners, pretty much. There's like 3 of them. They're the majority owners of pretty much every S&P 500 company out there, and which means they own the majority of all these companies as well. So they have huge influence over these companies, and they also control a lot of these companies' debts as well. So it'll be really easy to kind of get everybody on board with this new currency type of thing. But the people who essentially are paying off our debts, that's debts that don't even exist. That's money that's not real. They are printing more money. They're making, and that steals your. I think I can. One thing I do all the time, and it's not very. I don't think it's a good habit all the time, but I go to the extreme. If you're going to take this one step, let's see where that step keeps on going. And so like for example, them inflating currency, I look at that as they're stealing your life away, because you're gonna have to work more. You're gonna have to spend more time not with your family, not doing things that you love to help feed this machine, right? But so yeah, everybody, this debt that everybody owes is created, and this whole problem is created by the people who are now telling you that they're gonna save you. It's like they are the ones, they're destroying your lives, everybody's lives, and then they reach out with a helping hand, and everyone's going to take it. That's what I think is what's gonna happen. Oh, what's up, man? How you doing? Yeah. So I don't know. Again, I don't know if like what's going to happen in the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever. But the fact that like not a single fiat currency has existed more than, or the average fiat currency has existed 27 years, I think. Kind of the longest real currency, can't even call it real, I guess, would be the British pound sterling. It's been like 300 some odd years, something like that. I guess the silver itself has been used for over 1,000 years, but when it comes to fiat currency not backed by gold, this same path of failure happens every single time, just different names. And so now the nice thing is I'm not nice, that's the wrong word, but we can actually see the effect with countries right now. It's like Venezuela, for instance. You would go and you'd buy a cup of coffee for $1.60. 2 days later, it'd be, or a day later, right? It'd be $1.72. A day later, it'd be $1.90, whatever the case. And it kept going up. So it went up 200,000%. And they brought it back 3 times, and it kept getting killed out. But there's a lot of problems with the president on this one, but they were printing tons of money. And you as a citizen, you just didn't have a choice. You just kind of had to get screwed over. And so people just had to start using other currencies. Again, this is why Bitcoin's important, right? But yeah, in some countries, like Germany, for instance, they got in a lot of trouble in World War II, and they had to pay back all this money to other countries for damages they did and stuff. And so they just printed their money into oblivion, and they just kept paying off their debt. And it's like, oh, well, your money is worth half as much. And like, okay, we'll print twice as much, and now we can pay off our debt. And that's what they did, right? And so this happens all the time, but the United States, it's not happening this fast. But yeah, this whole thing is why I think Bitcoin's inevitable, why I think DeFi is inevitable, and why I think, the nice thing about the internet is it connects people, and unless like they are able to lock that down somehow, and make sure nobody's able to connect with one another, it's going to get to the point where I think like the people will eventually like take back control. I just don't know what that's going to look like, and I don't think it's my generation, that's for sure. But I did kind of want to go over a couple of things as well, because when I was talking about the banks gambling your money away and causing all these crashes, they're doing that to your money. It's like, why can't you do that with your own money? Because you can't do that. You can't like use a credit card and then use like the money. Whatever, I don't know. You have restrictions on what you can and can't do with your own money. Try to take out $12,000 of cash in your bank and then not tell your bank why you did it, and not give them an answer. Because I'll tell you what'll happen. They'll say, good luck, find another bank, we're done with you. Because that's what happened to me, actually. It was like 45 minutes, and I'm like, it's not your concern where my money went. I understand what you're trying to do, but it's personal, right? I don't care what it was. Even if I was buying bubble gum, it's not your business. It's my money, not yours. And I understand like terrorism, but anyways, they're very much in control. And so I just want to kind of go over some DeFi companies out there, projects, and ways that you can actually make money off of your money right now if you didn't use a bank. So even currently, there's some really cool things going on with DeFi. And so I kind of just wanted to show some things. So this is, by the way, all this data. I have so many freaking references, you guys. I went ham on getting this information, making sure it was accurate and whatever. Because I'll eventually make a shortened video on this on YouTube, but. Right now, this is what, if you had a savings account, this is the average savings account. Now, there are some, I try to find the highest. This is the highest I found. So like 5.5 is the highest currently offered. But if you bank, and these are like tiny, branches that have 7 banks in Philadelphia or whatever the case, you go to the big boys and you're making 0.01% off of your money. Now, just to give you an idea, you put in $1,000 with Wells Fargo, they take $9,000 of that. They are now able to spend $9,000 because they just add $8,000 in their computer and out of nowhere. And now they can use that $9,000 to put it in a very low risk S&P 500 type of stock. And, you know, now they're making $900 to $2,500 a year off of your money, because this S&P goes from like 10 to 22% depending on the year. But yeah, why can't so you can't, so you're making 0.01% and they're making $2,000 off of your money, let's say 1,500, whatever. They make 1,500, and they're like, hey, here's a McDonald's hamburger. Ooh, actually the dollar menu. Ooh, yeah, tax. Well, next year you can buy a hamburger, right? Come on. So, and that's if you just had $1,000 in it. What if you have $10,000? Are you kidding me? They're making 20 grand off of your money, and you're making 100, 50, 60, 70 bucks, whatever. So yeah, crypto, you can have your money into a checking account, and here's just a few different platforms. So Aave, you can make 42%. Yearn is a little bit more risky, but it's 7 to 12%. And this is USD, by the way. DAI is a stable backed currency, gold backed. USD C is dollar backed, and then Ethereum. So yeah, you can make money back here if you have a checking account, right? This is just like a regular debit card. You're not making almost any money with these companies. I couldn't find any cool program any bank was doing, but you can just have your money on BlockFi. This is one I was using back in the day. I've used them actually. But yeah, you can have 4 to 12% just from using a checking account, right? Credit cards as well. You can make your cash back in Bitcoin. You can, you know, loans as well. You can loan out your crypto as well as get loans with crypto. There's all sorts of banking. Anything that you can do in a bank, you can do in DeFi and crypto. And I think that's why it's inevitable. Is one, you can't shut it down. People can't shut you down. Your Bitcoin wallets, as long as you have access to the internet, that's your qualification. So it doesn't care what country you're from, doesn't care what language you speak, doesn't care what country laws you have, doesn't care, because it's a program. A program is built to process transactions, and that's what it does. So I mean, among other things, I guess, in the background to keep it safe and secure and all that stuff. But so yeah, why would you put faith in banks? And you'll find that entire countries have adopted Bitcoin as their currency, because you can't trust the government, you can't trust big business, but you can trust an open network. You can trust being able to actually see, you know, like open source software, essentially, versus private, right? Who do you trust more? You know, the people who tell you their code is awesome, or the people who give you the code and say you can scrape through that code, and anyone who finds anything wrong with it, you can narc on us. You can say, hey, this sucks and I want to fix it, this is what I propose, and they were like, that's a good idea, and then they'll propose it and then they'll change it, right? Like, it should be an open, democratized, decentralized, you know, type of money. It just isn't. You know, I know I'm not in. I've been obsessed about AI lately, last like couple of years, and there's a lot of doomsdayers. Everyone's always, it doesn't matter what comes out, it's always destroying the world and all this stuff. And I try to look past all that, but with AI, it's like, well, if you built an AI that was open source and you knew what decisions it was making, why it was making those decisions, you could fine tune that AI. Like, wouldn't you kind of want that AI making important decisions instead of like some human? You know, like, I love Elon Musk, like, for a lot of things, but I think he doesn't understand what free speech means. I think he's just destroying Twitter. But he can do it. It's his company, right? But if Twitter was open source and everybody could make decisions, then everybody would see what's going on, and then they can decide what they want their platform to be, and if they didn't like the platform and the platform sucked, they would leave, or they would propose changes. So the nice thing is like the masses can control all of these companies, all the economies, you know, platforms, anything digital essentially. And so yeah, I'm very much a proponent of Bitcoin, obviously, but yeah, I think when you have a human being making important decisions, a lot of times that position is just going to get corrupted. And the more important that decision could be, the more it could trickle down and affect people, and the longer it takes to fix. I mean, yeah, I just saw the documentary on DuPont, and it was, you know, they made like 17, 18 billion dollars, you know, killing thousands of people and infecting over 99% of the population with diseases or with problematic symptoms and all this stuff. They got fined $1 billion. Crazy. HSBC, right? They went to court and they were helping fund terrorism and hide it. They got caught doing it, and no one went to jail. Anyways, when people are in charge of things, that's why I'm like, well, if an AI was in charge of things and we program the AI to not give a crap if you're the president or if you're the governor or if you're the schmo down the street, and it, you know, anyways. But I think I'm gonna take off. You can stake ADA, yeah, Cardano. You can stake anything, pretty much. Yeah, the bigger the token, the more you can stake it. But man, I didn't even get through a lot of this stuff.
We are in the midst of a once-in-a-century credit.
Well, cool, guys. I'm going to peace out from this. I just kind of wanted to... how long did this take? Oh, it took an hour. That's not too shabby, even with my little mess-ups and stuff. I was trying to make a video of this for my crypto company, and I kept making it an hour. So, anyways, cool. Well, appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.